Hey everyone, this is Fraser. I'm here for an episode of Collateral to talk about Breakout Con, which I went to a couple of weekends back. Um, so I'm going to discuss some of the games that I had the chance to play there, and I also want to discuss the con as a whole and some thoughts about running games at cons. But before I do that, I actually wanted to mention that 1D4 Con is going to be happening in Martinsburg, West Virginia. At least I think that's what WV is, from April 15th to the 17th. Now, I'll put a link in the documents. I'm also going to have a little audio from the people in charge of 1D4 Con to try to sell it to you. I don't have that to run now. It's going to be on the MP3 version of Collateral when it hits the feed, so you can listen to it then. So Breakout Con. Breakout Con happens in Toronto. This was the first of it, the first Breakout Con, and a bunch of people from the Indie Game Developer Network were there. Myself, Jason Pizzeri, and Jonathan Lavallee were all there. And I'm just going to edit this part out while I go and check who actually was there. Should have had this already queued up, but and this is of course going to be removed from the actual final version. But I literally just finished doing the laundry at my house, so apologies. I don't think anybody's actually listening right now. Anyways, that's not a problem. Yeah, Jonathan Lavallee. Lavallee. Anyways, so there's some good support from IGDN, and that included some prize support, which is awesome. Now, my first game was supposed to be running from 10 until 2. There's a lot of late night gaming at Breakout Con. Pause while I check some stuff out. Yeah, so Breakout Con ran from 18th to 20th of March. It was, I believe, the first Breakout Con, and it was supported by some the Toronto Area Board Gaming Society, Toronto Role Players Game Association, and Toronto Area Gamers. So those were the organizers of Breakout Con. They did a fantastic job. Again, this was the first Breakout Con, but hopefully it won't be the last. It was really enjoyable, and I was very happy to be there. Now, the Indie Game Developer Network had a pretty good showing there. Jason Petrie, Jonathan Lavallee, and myself, we were all there, and others provided a lot of prize support to Breakout Con, which was really, I was very happy to see that. Now, my first game was supposed to be at 10 p.m. on the Friday, and so I had a chance in the evening to play in a Blades in the Dark game. Now, Blades in the Dark is a Jonathan Harper game. It was Kickstarted. I'm actually in on the Kickstarter. And it continues to evolve. We're basically getting playtest documents. I think the last one was version 5. This is my actual first chance to play it. I kind of read through it a little bit, looked at the mechanics, which is generally why I back things on Kickstarter. I'm interested in the mechanics. Excuse me. So that's pretty much why I was backing that. So that was pretty much why I was backing Blades in the Dark, was to check out the mechanics. And so it was really good to get a chance to play it at Breakout Con. It was a fun game. It's interesting. It's a little bit different than what I'm used to. There are different components to it, from what your character can do to what the group does. There's the individual actions, there's the group actions. It's really a very interesting system, and it's basically targeted on criminals building a kind of a criminal empire or a gang, and there's plans and activities, kind of like missions that your group can go on. And we did both we did both a pre-planned, but then also we allowed it to evolve into something else once we had completed what the GM had planned for us. So right now I'm pretty happy with Blades in the Dark. I'm very happy that I backed it. I think it's going to do what it says it's going to do, and it's evolving into a very interesting system with a lot of subsystems. I think that was the thing that was of most interest to me, is that while they all follow the basic same premise, the basic same mechanical foundation, there's a bunch of different subsystems for the different things that characters and groups can do within the setting. And that's not something that I'm used to, that I've played or designed, at least since D20. D20 also does have a bunch of subsystems, not as much as old school D&D did, but it does have some subsystems. And I haven't really played or ran a game with that level of complexity in a long time. Now, no one actually showed up for my 10 p.m. game. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. That's okay, because I could actually get a fair amount of sleep. And this is one of the really good things for me at Breakout Con. It's right in a hotel. It was the Yorkdale Holiday Inn, which means that also you're right across from Yorkdale. Those of you who know Toronto will know the Yorkdale Mall, which has a pretty big food court. Not a lot for breakfast, but that's besides the point. That was my problem the next morning. But it was right in the hotel, so at 10 o'clock, I set up my game. No one really came. People were moving into the breakout room at Breakout Con. But I guess we do have a viewer, listener. It's not showing up on my links here. But so yeah, so I had set up the game, and no one showed up, which is fine. There's a separate section for late night gaming. And because nobody showed up, and it's in a hotel, I could easily wander up to my room and grab some sleep. Now, Victor Wyatt asks, what do you think of the evolution of the Blades rules through the Kickstarter process? I backed two, but have only dug into the earlier iterations. From what I can tell, and I'm kind of like you, I backed Blades mostly for mechanical interest, because John Harper is the guy who did Lady Blackbird, which I think is an amazing piece of work, both as a designer and just as a player. So I was very interested to see how he was going to approach this particular genre. And from what I can tell, the mechanics are evolving in the building up of subsystems, as opposed to drastic changes to how the system runs, how it mechanically runs. So I'm pretty happy with it. But again, I didn't really back it to run it. And I think that's a huge difference between how I'm approaching Kickstarters and how a lot of people approach Kickstarters. I know there are people who will buy games intent to just read them as opposed to play them. And there are a lot of people who have massive libraries of games that they never play but read. I'm much more about looking at how role-playing games are evolving, how people are approaching genres, how they're doing conflict resolution or resolution at all. So I think the evolution is very interesting in the building up of the subsystems, but I haven't really played it, so it's hard to say. It's hard to say how it has changed mechanically. The basic premise remains the same. It's just they're adding levels of complexity. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So that Friday, I got to play Blades in the Dark, but I didn't run. After you overdrive the next morning, because this is a hotel, it's very expensive. And just so, I mean, apropos of nothing, I got the little discount, 10% discount on the breakfast buffet, either the continental or the full breakfast buffet, because I'm a member of the hotel chain. Got one of those old membership cards. So we went down to check out how much the breakfast buffet was going to be, and it ended up being $18.95 for the continental. That means cereal and toast. So yeah, and I'm honestly not going to blame Holiday Inn for that. That's how hotels work. Luckily, we were right by Yorkdale. Unfortunately, on the Saturday morning, nothing was really open in the food court in Yorkdale. We did find a Tim Hortons that was open, which was great. So we got those of you from outside of Canada. Tim Hortons is a ubiquitous coffee shop that's common in Canada and a little bit in certain places in the United States, but not outside of there. And they generally have a pretty good fast morning breakfast. So we were able to charge up with that, and I was able to get back in time to play Dino Pirates of Ninja Island with my buddy Corey Reed. And this is really great because Corey and I have run games parallel to each other at a few different conventions, and I've never actually had the chance to play in it. Now, Corey was using Fate Core to run Dino Pirates of Ninja Island, and there's Dino Pirates of Ninja Island, and there's various incarnations of that game and setting that uses different sets of rules. So one can say that one has played Dino Pirates of Ninja Island, but really what you're playing in is the setting, and there are different rules for through the history of the game. Now, I knew Fate Accelerated. I'd played a Fate Accelerated, actually a really cool Fate Accelerated game at Cottage Con. Those of you who listen to Excellent Survivors know Cottage Con is Rob's semi-annual or annual, occasionally annual convention as he closes up his cottage. And Andrew Medeiros of Urban Shadows ran a Fate Accelerated game based in Firefly. So I had played Fate Accelerated at Cottage Con, but I never played Fate Core. It was pretty easy to catch on to. Fate Core isn't as simple as some systems that I would prefer, but it's simple enough as from the player side. I think it's more complex from the GM side, but it's pretty simple from the player side once you figure out how the pieces fit together. And it was great because much like Nefertiti Overdrive, Dino Pirates of Ninja Island is based in the wire fu genre of Chinese martial arts action picks, which means there's a huge variety of actions that you can take, and you don't need to worry about physics and common sense, much like Nefertiti Overdrive. So as one can imagine, I was pretty much in my element. I think I overdid it a couple of times, but Corey was really good as a GM to kind of pull back on the reins and just say, whoa, buddy, like try to keep it within certain boundaries. Fantastic game. I can't speak highly enough. Dino Pirates of Ninja Island is a great thing to read. It's a great thing to think about. It's also really great to game in it. Now, usually I was on the outside looking in, enjoying it for the pulp excitement that is hard coded into it, and it was really good to be able to get into it and play. Also, that Saturday I was able to go to lunch with Chris and Rob, my Accidental Survivor buddies, who live much closer to Toronto. For me, it's about a 5 to 6 hour drive, depending on traffic. For them, it's 45 minutes to an hour. So there's a big difference between the two of us. But it's really good. As often as we get to chat on the podcast, it's really nice to be able to sit down face to face and just hang out for a little bit. So that was fantastic. And then I got to run Nefertiti Overdrive, and it went good. I'm not going to say it went great. The first game went good. I think there were some difficulties with players trying to find their voice, and this is not necessarily uncommon. It's more difficult in a con game where you have 4 hours, and really you have, because you're kind of targeting to end at quarter to the hour, and it takes about 15 minutes to get people up to speed on the mechanics. You're really looking at 3.5 hours plus a 10-minute bio break, so you don't have a lot of time to get people into the headspace, and I don't mean Mark Richardson's role-playing game. I mean so that went smooth-esque, but not as it wasn't fantastic. To put it in mercenary terms, I don't think I sold any books on that game. Now, that evening, after I was done, it was actually 9 o'clock. That was a 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock game. And that evening, Chris Engler and Rob and I went out to Burger Priest, which thankfully did not provide Priest burgers, but had a wide selection of burgers to eat. And that was, again, a treat. Chris is somebody that I've known through Twitter and through the internet-verse, but actually hadn't sat down to talk, to meet, shake hands, talk to. So that, again, another thing that I love about conventions is actually the social aspect of meeting people and chatting with them. So that was fantastic, and that wasn't very far away. This is another thing about Toronto. Even though Breakout Con being right on the 401 is a little bit far from city center, you're never too far from places to eat and drink and that sort of thing. Even though, again, as I said, the hotels are way overpriced. Now, the next morning, I was actually running a game at 10 o'clock. My buddy, Jason, he of SIG and Postman Pathways and Spark, he was running at 9 in the morning. And a little aside, Saturday night we had 2 fire alarms. So I was not as well rested as I could have been. Be that as it may. I was running at 10. Jason was running at 9. We had a rough time getting up in the morning, a little bit tired. So I volunteered to go grab food. The Timmy's doesn't open until 10, which didn't help me at all. So I just went and got like a bagel from the little coffee shop in the hotel, which wasn't bad. I mean, $3.50 bagel with cream cheese, like not the best, but you'll survive. You know what I mean? So I had my breakfast. The game on Sunday for Nefertiti Overdrive was fantastic. The players grasped the concept very quickly and jumped over the usual part. Now, generally in Nefertiti Overdrive, when people are starting to figure it out, what they're doing is they're taking each of their attributes, the 4 attributes that provide dice, and they're explaining them cinematically one by one. So what you have is kind of a convoluted paragraph that can slow down the game. And this is generally how people start to learn it. Not a problem. They're having fun. That's cool. The players in this game pretty much jumped over that part and went directly to providing a good, fast paragraph that hit all of the attributes. So there was a lot of a really cool description, and I'm looking at it going, okay, you hit X, Y, and Z. The one thing that we generally had to elucidate was the driver. What driver are you hitting? Okay, got it, great. So that game went really well, also because the player who was playing the Misfit decided to really focus on the redemptive qualities of the Misfit, and she ended up creating pretty much a monastery of redeemed and reformed bad guys. It was really amazing. She did a fantastic job then, and when it actually got to fisticuffs, the other two, we had someone playing the Amazon and someone playing the Serpent. So we had a lot of really, especially the boss fight at the end turned out really well. It was very exciting. I think everyone had a fantastic time. And that makes the con for me. Able to run a game where you see people, number one, getting into the game, which is generally what happens in Nefertiti Overdrive. I'm usually at the end of the game, everyone's laughing and having a good time, and so I'm very happy. But in a case where the people intuitively grasp the rules and apply them extremely well, that is hugely gratifying. And then again, on the mercenary end, Breakout Con was kind enough to be able to sell the books of those guests who were running games. And so I sold a few books and made a little bit of money, and also was asked by a couple of people to sign their books. And I made a post on Sword's Edge about this, how both weird and awesome that is. It's extremely weird, especially as a self-deprecating Canadian, that people want me to sign the books. That seems odd to me. Who am I to be signing your book? And yeah, okay, I wrote it, but still. But it's also awesome because it means that people are valuing your work so much they actually want, they feel it adds value for you to sign it. And I don't think we're talking about monetary value. I think we're talking about a nostalgic value or sentimental value. And I don't think as a writer you can be paid a higher compliment than that. It's fantastic when people are willing to, number one, put money out for your product, but then to actually say, and further, I kind of want you to personalize this and make it a little bit special. And that was great. My one concern is I think I may have gone overboard with because I wanted to personalize the signings, trying to figure out something to write down along with just signing it, something cool. I may have gone a little bit overboard with that, and hopefully that doesn't detract from the sentimental value of the books that I signed. In the end, Breakout Con for me was fantastic, and I've spoken to people that were there, that visited as players, as attendees, and they said that while there were some hiccups with registration, I guess the online leg of registration didn't shake hands extremely well. There's a mixed metaphor. Didn't shake hands extremely well with the physical sign up at the con. That in general, these were hiccups that were really easy to overcome, and that mostly it was pretty simple to show up and get in on a game. Now, as a guest who didn't have to pay, also getting in on games I found super easy. There were sign-up sheets. Like, these are the games that are about to be run. Here's a pen. Put your name on it and go sit down and play. And it seems super simple. There's also a huge board game contingent there. Everything seemed to me to be very well run. Not that I've been to a lot of cons, but I've been to a few, and I really liked how this one worked. I was happy to. It was really gratifying being a guest there. I had a lot of fun. If asked, I will 100% go back next year. And hey, even if I'm not asked, I might show up as a player, depending upon what my schedule is like next year. So keep your eyes open for Breakout Con. I'll put a link to their webpage and their Twitter so that you can keep up to date. And hey, I hope maybe I'll see you there in 2017. It was really a great experience, and kudos for the organizers of Breakout Con. This is just a short one, just so I could get my thoughts out while they were still relatively fresh in my mind. Accidental Survivors will be back with a regular episode soon. We're trying to schedule that, and you know how, those of you who are regular listeners know how difficult it is for us to maintain a regular schedule. But thanks a lot for listening, and stay frosty.